Good evening, fellow wanderer through time. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Feel the weight of the modern world pressing against your ribs, the endless scroll, the fluorescent glare, the low-grade fever of notifications that never quite lets you rest. Now exhale slowly. Let it all unravel. Let the tension slip from your shoulders like frost melting off iron. The white noise of the 21st century, the hum of servers, the ping of incoming dread, the cold blue light that steals sleep begins to dissolve. It fades into something thicker, softer, a heavy velvet darkness that smells faintly of coal smoke and wet wool. We are leaving now. Visualize the calendar pinned to your wall. The pages stir. At first, it's just a whisper, a single sheet trembling as though caught in a draft. Then the flutter grows. Pages lift, curl, tear free. They spiral backward in a dizzying rush, days bleeding into weeks, months into years. We streak past the glowing dawn of the internet, past the grainy triumph of moon boots on lunar dust, past the thunder and ash of world wars. Further still we fall, through the champagne haze of the Jazz Age, the gas-lit elegance of the Victorian era, until the whirlwind slows, softens, and we settle gently like a leaf drifting onto snow-dusted cobblestones. Sunday, March 11th, 1888, New York City. The air is deceptively mild this afternoon, almost spring-like. Temperatures hover in the mid-50s degrees Fahrenheit, a gentle tease after a long winter. Broadway thrums with the ordinary rhythm of the Gilded Age. Horse-drawn carriages clatter over Belgian block streets. Gentlemen in top hats and frock coats tip their hats to ladies in bustled dresses and fur-trimmed mantles. Newsboys shout headlines, and the new electric lights, still a novelty, compete with the warm yellow glow of gas lamps just beginning to flicker on as evening approaches. Here, take a look at what the city looked like only days before the storm descended. Busy, bustling, utterly unprepared. The streets are alive with the clop of hooves, the creak of wagon wheels, the distant whistle of steam engines pulling elevated trains along their iron tracks above the crowds.
No one suspects. The weather forecasts from the Signal Corps promise nothing more than fresh, brisk winds with rain, followed by colder, brisk westerly winds and fair weather. A spring shower, perhaps, nothing to fear. But the atmosphere is shifting. Far to the north, Arctic air is surging south. Far to the south, warm Gulf moisture is pushing north. They will collide over the eastern seaboard tonight, and when they do, the world will turn white. Before we step fully into the coming storm, before the temperature plummets from a mild 33 degrees Fahrenheit to a bone-cracking 8 degrees Fahrenheit in a matter of hours, before the rain hardens into blinding snow driven by winds that howl up to 80 miles per hour, before drifts pile 20, 30, even 50 feet high against brownstone walls, pause with me. If the phantom chill is already brushing your skin, if you can almost taste the coal smoke and feel the first stinging flakes, gently press that like button. Consider it a small candle flame held up against the gathering dark. And please, subscribe so you never have to face a storm like this one alone.
I want to know who journeys with me tonight. Drop a comment below. Where on the planet are you drifting from right now? What does the clock on your wall read? What temperature does your world feel tonight? I read every whisper,
every single one. We are almost there. The wind is beginning to rise. The first flakes are whispering against the window panes. Ready? Then come. The great white hurricane is waiting. Open your eyes. You are standing on the bustling corner of Broadway and 14th Street in Manhattan, right at the very edge of Union Square. It is late afternoon on Sunday, March 11th, 1888, and the light is beginning to fail, soft, golden, and reluctant, as though the sun itself is lingering a little longer, unaware of what the night will bring. The first thing you notice is the air. It is damp, thick, and heavy with a strange, suffocating warmth that feels entirely out of place for late winter. Nearly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, perhaps even a touch higher earlier in the day. A deceptive, almost spring-like gift after months of cold. The scent wraps around you like a heavy woolen cloak, the wet lanolin musk of passing overcoats and skirts, the sharp, acrid bite of bituminous coal smoke drifting down from 1,000 chimneys and factory stacks, the faint metallic tang of horse sweat mingling with the earthy, churned mud of the streets where iron-rimmed carriage wheels cut deep grooves into the softening dirt and cobblestones. The city around you is alive, breathing its distinct, slower Sunday rhythm. No roaring engines, no honking horns, no skyscrapers clawing at the sky. Instead, the eye is drawn to intricate brickwork and brownstone facades of 4- and 5-story buildings, their cornices and window arches catching the last slanting rays. Overhead, a chaotic web of telegraph and telephone wires crisscross like black spider silk against the pale sky, swaying gently in the still harmless breeze. The elevated railroad tracks rumble sporadically above, their iron latticework throwing long, shifting shadows across the pavement. Look around you now. Families drift home from evening church services, the women in long, heavy skirts and bustled dresses that brush the wet ground with soft whispers, their gloved hands tucked into muffs or holding the arms of husbands and fathers. The men wear silk top hats that gleam faintly in the dimming light, tipping them politely as they navigate the shallow puddles with practiced grace. Children, bundled in capes and scarves, skip ahead or cling to parental hands, their laughter bright against the low murmur of conversation. Here, horse-drawn streetcars, known as horse cars, rattle and clang along their iron tracks embedded in the cobblestones. The horses, massive and patient, plod forward with steaming flanks, their coats slick with the light, persistent drizzle that has begun to fall. Drivers in oilskin capes snap the reins gently, calling out to clear the way as pedestrians step aside. The gas lamps lining the streets stand sentinel, their ornate iron posts still dark for now, glass globes trembling slightly in the playful current of air. Lamplighters will soon appear with their ladders and torches, bringing the warm, flickering yellow glow that will define the evening before everything changes. Take in the scene at this fleeting, innocent moment. The square itself, Union Square, lies just behind you, a green oasis of trees and pathways dominated by the heroic bronze statue of George Washington on horseback, gazing southward down Broadway. Theaters and music halls line the edges, the Union Square Theater, the Academy of Music, promising tonight's entertainments with colorful posters pasted on walls and billboards. Newsboys shout the latest headlines, their voices cutting through the clatter of hooves and wheels. Here are glimpses of this very world captured in the years surrounding 1888. Broadway approaching Union Square, the wide sidewalks thronged, the buildings elegant and low, the energy of a city still growing into its grandeur.
and closer to the streets themselves, horse-drawn vehicles, Victorian figures, the wet gleam of cobblestones under gathering dusk. The drizzle is light, almost refreshing. No one hurries. The forecast promised only evening rain and perhaps a shift to cooler air overnight. The city moves in comfortable ignorance, savoring this false promise of an early spring. But the wind is beginning to stir, subtle from the north, carrying the first faint whisper of something colder, sharper, ancient.
Feel it on your skin? The great white hurricane is still hours away, but it is coming. Stay with me. The night is about to fall in earnest. Everyone here is calm, utterly, disarmingly calm. Listen to the easy cadence of their voices rising above the clatter of hooves and the soft hiss of wheels on wet stone. A cluster of gentlemen in frock coats stands beneath the awning of a corner pharmacy, debating the coming work week with the casual authority of men who believe the world will continue turning precisely as it always has. Monday's shipment from Chicago should arrive by noon, one says, puffing on a cigar that sends lazy blue smoke curling into the damp air. Flour's up another cent a barrel. Ridiculous, but what can you do? Another chuckles, shaking his head. Blame the railroads, always the railroads. Nearby, two women in dark woolen mantles and feathered hats pause to exchange pleasantries, their market baskets swinging gently from gloved wrists. The mild weather is a blessing, one remarks, tilting her face toward the sky as if to thank it personally. Spring has arrived early this year. Imagine roses by Easter. Her companion nods, smiling. I've already planned the menus for the week. Roast beef tomorrow, perhaps a nice lamb stew midweek. The children will be thrilled. Children dart between legs, laughing, chasing one another in small, carefree circles. A boy in knickerbockers kicks at a puddle, sending arcs of water sparkling in the failing light. A little girl in a hooded cape clutches her mother's hand, humming a hymn from this morning's service. No one rushes. No one glances nervously at the horizon. They are making plans for tomorrow morning as though tomorrow is promised. The elevated train at 7:45, the office ledger waiting on the desk, the milkman's knock at dawn. But you carry the burden of history. You know the names they will never speak tonight. The great white hurricane, the storm that will claim over 400 souls across the Northeast. The drifts that will bury entire streets, entomb elevated trains, snap telegraph poles like matchsticks, and freeze the East River solid. You know that by this time tomorrow, the city will be unrecognizable, a white, silent wilderness where men will crawl through second-story windows to rescue trapped families, where the stock exchange will shutter for days, and where the very shape of urban America will begin to change in the aftermath. You look up at the sky. It is not the soft, forgiving gray of a spring shower. It is the color of bruised pewter, low, churning, oppressively thick, as though the heavens themselves have drawn a heavy iron curtain across the city and are now waiting, patient and merciless, to let it fall. The clouds boil slowly, layer upon layer, swallowing the last remnants of daylight. The barometer, though invisible to the crowds around you, is crashing with terrifying speed. Historical records will later show it plummeting nearly an inch in mere hours, from around 29.88 to 29.06 by midnight, a drop that signals cyclonic fury gathering strength offshore. To the south, a vast river of warm, moist air surges northward from the Gulf, laden with the breath of distant oceans. To the north, A brutal Arctic front barrels down from Canada, its core frigid enough to crack iron. They are converging, right here, right now, over this unsuspecting island of stone and brick. The collision is inevitable. The atmosphere is charging like a loaded cannon. Now, look back up at those churning clouds. Watch as the bruised pewter deepens, shifts, darkens into an ominous, almost violet purple that seems to press down upon the rooftops and church spires. The wind, still gentle for the moment, carries a faint, metallic chill, a whisper of what is coming. The rain begins softly at first, deceptively gentle, just a cold mist that clings to your eyelashes, beads on the brim of top hats, darkens the shoulders of overcoats in slow, spreading patches. Around you, the rhythm of the street stutters but does not stop. People pull collars higher, hunch shoulders against the damp, mutter mild complaints about this infernal drizzle. A businessman near the corner pauses to consult his gold pocket watch, lips pursed as he calculates whether he can reach Delmonico's before the real downpour begins. Perhaps a quick brandy and oyster supper to cap the day. A mother kneels briefly to adjust her daughter's bonnet, tying the ribbons a little tighter, urging, "Come along, dear, faster now before we're soaked through." The girl giggles, oblivious. A newsboy, cap pulled low, shouts the evening edition one last time. "Extra! Mild weather holds! Spring comes early!" They are thinking of Sunday roast cooling on the sideboard, the warm flicker of fires in brownstone hearths, the comfort of slippers and steaming tea. They are thinking of Monday's mundane rituals, the commute, the ledger, the letters to post. They have seen rain before. They have seen snow before. They are New Yorkers, hardened by blistering summers, bitter winters, the endless cycle of seasons, and they believe they speak the language of the sky fluently. They think this is merely the final, temperamental tantrum of a winter already in retreat. Here are glimpses of the city in these last innocent hours. Streets alive with Sunday strollers, horse-drawn traffic, the quiet elegance of a Gilded Age afternoon before the world turned white. And the gathering menace above, the heavy, leaden sky that no camera of the era quite captured, but which survivors would describe as the color of old lead and a lid closing over the city. The mist thickens. The first true drops patter against hat brims and carriage roofs. The wind begins to freshen, tugging at skirts and capes. You feel it, the shift, the tightening, the moment before everything breaks. They do not, but you do. The great white hurricane is no longer approaching. It has arrived. Stay close. The night is falling fast, and the real storm is only beginning. But the sky is about to speak a dialect no one in New York has ever heard. It is about to scream in a language of pure violence. Suddenly, the physics of the world seem to snap.
The temperature begins to plummet. Not a gentle slide, not a slow retreat, but a brutal, instantaneous collapse. You feel it happen on your skin. The damp, cloying warmth of the afternoon is ripped away in seconds, replaced by a razor-edged frost that burns as it bites. Historical accounts will later record the mercury crashing from the upper 40s and low 50s degrees Fahrenheit down to the single digits and below zero in a matter of hours, one of the most violent temperature drops ever documented in the city. The air itself seems to contract, growing denser, sharper, drier. Every breath you draw stings the back of your throat like inhaling shards of glass. The rain, which had been a soft, forgiving patter, stops being rain at all. It transforms mid-fall into stinging ice pellets, hard, translucent buckshot that rattles against top hats, pings off carriage roofs, and peppers exposed cheeks with tiny, painful welts. The muddy puddles at your feet, still rippling with the last echoes of the drizzle, glaze over in an instant, turning into treacherous sheets of black ice that gleam like obsidian under the dying light.
You hear the horses first, their confused, panicked whinnies rising above the growing roar. Massive percherons and bays, so steady moments ago, now scramble and slip, iron-shod hooves skittering uselessly on the suddenly slick cobblestones. Drivers curse, yank reins, try to steady their teams as wagons lurch sideways, wheels locking. And then, the wind. The wind, which had been a mere playful whisper tugging at awnings and fluttering skirts, clears its throat with terrifying authority. It begins as a low, mournful moan threading through the dense spiderweb of telegraph wires overhead, slow, resonant, like the first long draw of a bow across the deepest string of a cello. But it builds, rapidly. The note climbs, sharpens, becomes a metallic shriek that vibrates every wire, every pole, every iron girder of the elevated tracks. The lines sing in eerie harmony, a chorus of isolation that drowns out human voices. Shop awnings snap and flap like torn sails. Loose newspapers whirl upward in frantic spirals before vanishing into the white.
The city is shrinking before your eyes. Familiar landmarks, Union Square's arch, the spires of Grace Church, the distant silhouette of the Brooklyn Bridge towers begin to dissolve behind a thickening veil of horizontal snow. Visibility drops to mere yards. The world contracts to the space immediately around you, the sting of ice on your face, the howl in your ears, the cold that is no longer outside, but inside, gnawing through layers of wool and linen, searching for the warmth of your blood. Standing here is no longer safe. The great white hurricane has awakened. Let's get you out of this. You turn your back to the biting north wind, shoulders hunched, collar turned high, and push forward through the gathering drifts that are already forming ankle-deep ridges against the curbs. You move briskly up the frost-slicked brownstone steps of a quiet residence on West 10th Street, number 45 perhaps, or 49, one of those handsome, solid row houses with their high stoops and ornate iron railings now rimed with ice. Your fingers, stiffening with cold, fumble for a moment on the heavy brass knob before the carved oak door finally yields. It swings inward with a deep, reassuring weight, thick, solid, built to keep out the world. You step across the threshold and pull the door shut behind you with a decisive thud. Instantly, the roar of the street is severed. The cacophony of slipping hooves, shouting drivers, shrieking wind, and clanging telegraph wires vanishes as though a curtain has dropped. In its place, hushed, enveloping silence, broken only by the soft, rhythmic crackle of a fire already burning brightly in the wide hearth across the room. You stand in the entry hall of a private library, timeless, warm, cocooned. The air is thick with the comforting sense of old wealth, the rich vanilla and earth aroma of aged paper from thousands of leather-bound volumes lining the walls floor to ceiling, the sharp, clean tang of polished calfskin bindings, the sweet, drowsy perfume of beeswax candles and furniture polish. Tall windows, heavy with velvet drapes now drawn against the storm, muffle the outside world to a distant murmur. Gas lamps on brass sconces cast a soft golden glow across the room, their flames steady and warm. In the center, the fireplace dominates, a massive marble mantel carved with classical motifs, a roaring blaze of seasoned oak logs shifting and settling with gentle pops, sending sparks dancing upward. The heat radiates outward in waves, thawing your chilled skin, coaxing life back into numb fingers. A deep leather armchair waits nearby, its seat slightly depressed as though recently occupied,
a half-read copy of the New York Times folded on the armrest, still bearing the date March 11th, 1888, its headlines blissfully ignorant of what is now unfolding beyond the walls. Here, in this sanctuary of mahogany, books, and firelight, the storm feels almost unreal, like a tale being told about some far-off place rather than the reality devouring the city outside. Here are glimpses of the fury you just escaped, the moment when rain turned to sleet and ice, when wind began its shriek, and when the white veil first swallowed the streets. And visions of the very brownstone interiors that offered refuge, warm parlors and libraries where families huddled as the world froze. You exhale slowly. The cold is locked outside, for now. But the night is long, and the storm is only growing stronger. Stay here with me. We have hours yet before dawn, and many stories to tell before the city wakes to a world forever changed. You peel off your heavy coat, the wool sodden and stiff with half-frozen sleet. You shake it once, hard, sending a spray of icy droplets pattering onto the black and white encaustic tiles of the entryway like scattered coins. The coat hangs heavy on the brass rack, dripping slowly, a small puddle forming beneath it as evidence of the world you've just escaped. You cross the Persian rug, its deep crimson and indigo patterns muted in the firelight, and lower yourself into the deep, tufted wingback chair positioned exactly beside the bay window. The leather sighs beneath you, cool at first, then yielding, cradling your body as though it has been waiting all evening for precisely this moment. You sink back, shoulders dropping, spine lengthening. The last remnants of tension leak out of you like air from a punctured balloon. You are safe here. The walls are thick, load-bearing brick, laid in the days when buildings were meant to outlast their occupants. The glass in the tall, multi-paned windows is old, hand-blown, slightly wavy, streaked with the faint imperfections of 19th century craftsmanship, yet it stands impervious, a sturdy barrier between you and the gathering apocalypse outside. Warmth from the hearth wraps around you like an embrace. You are enveloped, cocooned. The storm may howl, but it cannot touch you here. From this perfect vantage point, safely behind the glass, you can watch the world transform. Outside the window, the gathering storm has begun in earnest. The transition is terrifyingly swift, a violent shift in the very mood of the planet. One moment there was still the illusion of rain, the next the air is thick with white. But these are not the soft, drifting flakes of a Christmas card, lazy and picturesque. This is something primal, something punitive. Hard, driving pellets of ice and snow hammer the glass like handfuls of sand flung by an invisible, furious giant. Each impact is sharp, distinct, a rapid, relentless tattoo that makes the panes shudder in their leaded frames. The wind has found its full voice, and it is angry beyond reason. It rises from the low, mournful moan you heard earlier into a piercing, multi-octave scream that vibrates straight through the window glass and into the bones of your fingertips where they rest against the sill. It tears at the heavy canvas awnings of the grocery shop directly across the narrow street, snapping the taut fabric like a whip, ripping long, jagged strips free and sending them spiraling upward into the white void. The iron stanchions groan under the assault. You watch a lone man, topcoat flapping, scarf trailing, struggle against the gale. His body is bent forward at a brutal 45-degree angle just to make headway. In a heartbeat, the wind claws the bowler hat from his head and hurls it skyward. The hat cartwheels wildly, black against white,
then vanishes instantly into the churning chaos as though it never existed. The man reaches instinctively, too late, then stops, shoulders sagging in resignation. He turns, scrambles, half crawls toward the nearest doorway, disappearing into shadow. The street is disappearing. The city is being erased. Below, the tall iron street lamps, those proud, gas-fed sentinels of the Gilded Age, begin to flicker awake one by one. But tonight they offer no comfort, no orientation. Their warm yellow flames are suffocated, reduced to pale, ghostly halos that barely penetrate the swirling white abyss. The light they cast illuminates nothing but the violent dance of the snow itself, horizontal, blinding, endless. The familiar geography of the city is dissolving before your eyes. It is an act of unmaking. The sharp industrial corners of the brick buildings opposite soften, blur, become vague, hulking gray shapes, half lost in fog. Telegraph poles, once stark black lines against the sky, are transforming into thick white pillars, their cross-arms already buried.
The cobblestones, usually so distinct, so uneven underfoot, are vanishing beneath a relentless white blanket that deepens not by the hour, but by the minute, by the second. The city's skeleton is being buried alive. Down on the avenue, the confusion is palpable. It radiates upward from the few remaining figures still foolish or desperate enough to be out. A horse-drawn streetcar, usually the undisputed monarch of the thoroughfare, now fights for its life against the gale. It is a choreography of pure panic. The team of 4 massive bays lowers their heads, necks straining, manes whipping sideways. Their breath explodes from flared nostrils in great billowing clouds of steam, only to be shredded and torn away the instant it leaves their bodies. Iron shoes strike sparks on the ice-glazed stones beneath the snow, then slip, scramble, find no purchase. The car rocks violently on its tracks, wheels grinding, metal shrieking against metal. The driver, exposed on the front platform with no shelter but his oilskin cape and cap, is shouting commands, hoarse, frantic syllables swallowed instantly by the wind before they can reach the horse's ears. His face is a mask of red and white, cheeks raw, eyes narrowed to slits against the stinging pellets. He snaps the reins again and again, uselessly, desperately. The storm does not care. It is rewriting the city in white ink, line by line, erasing every familiar contour. You sit here, warm, still, the fire crackling softly at your back, the leather chair holding you like an old friend. Outside, the great white hurricane is only beginning to show its full strength, and the night has barely started. Inside the horse-drawn streetcar, its wooden frame groaning under the assault, the scene is one of dawning, reluctant realization. Passengers, bundled in the lighter coats and capes they wore for what they believed would be a mild Sunday evening, now huddle closer together on the narrow wooden benches. Gloved hands, already stiffening, wipe thick layers of yellow condensation from the frosted glass panes. Condensation born not just of breath, but of the sudden, violent contrast between the dying warmth inside and the Arctic fury outside. Faces pressed to the cold, wavy glass, noses flattening, eyes straining into the thickening twilight. They search desperately for a familiar landmark, the corner of Fifth Avenue, the awning of the tailor's shop, the ironwork of the elevated tracks overhead. Anything to tell them how many blocks remain until home, until hearth, until safety. They whisper to one another in low, unsteady voices. "We can't be more than a few streets from Washington Square now. The driver will turn back soon, surely. It's only a squall, it will pass."
They still cling to the comforting fiction that this is merely a storm, an inconvenience, a delay. They calculate how late they will be for Sunday supper, how cold the roast will be when they finally arrive, how they will apologize to the cook. They do not yet grasp the deeper truth. Some of them may never make it home at all. This is the cruel, masterful deception of the great white hurricane. It did not announce itself with the honest thunderclap of a summer tempest or the slow, creeping chill of a weeks-long freeze. No, it arrived with a whisper, a gentle spring-like afternoon that coaxed the city out of its winter shells. It seduced millions into stepping outside without heavy fur-lined coats, without galoshes, without provisions, without the least suspicion. It lured bankers from their desks, families from their parlors, children from their games, promising an early taste of April in the heart of March. And then, when the city was most vulnerable, when streets were full, when people were scattered, when the day's momentum carried them far from shelter, the trap snapped shut. From the safety of your deep wingback chair, with the firelight dancing gold across the window pane and warming your cheek, you watch the transformation unfold like a slow, merciless theater. The street outside is no longer a thoroughfare. It is becoming a canyon, a narrow, snow-choked gorge, carved not by water over centuries, but by wind in mere hours. The snow is no longer falling in any ordinary sense. It is being sculpted, weaponized by a frantic, invisible hand. The wind, now gusting at 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. Historical records will later confirm sustained speeds of 48 miles per hour, with bursts far higher, refuses to let the flakes settle gently. Instead, it scoops them up from the cobblestones in swirling, furious eddies and hurls them violently against the brick facades, the iron railings, the wooden shutters. The snow packs itself into every crevice, every doorway, every windowsill with the relentless pressure of a living thing trying to force entry. Drifts rise like slow, predatory creatures climbing the walls. A brownstone stoop that was swept clean just an hour ago is now completely buried. Only the tips of the ornate iron handrails protrude like the jagged teeth of some ancient beast breaking through a white jaw. A gas lamppost, once a proud, towering beacon of civilization, stands swallowed halfway up its black iron stem, the glass globe barely visible, its flame flickering weakly behind a translucent shroud of ice and snow, casting a sickly, diffused glow that illuminates nothing but more swirling white. The very logic of gravity seems to have failed.
Snow piles, not just on the ground, but vertically, against walls, up staircases, over doorways, defying every architectural truth the city was built upon. Cornices and ledges become shelves for impossible accumulations. Fire escapes turn into frozen ladders to nowhere. The wind sculpts the drifts into waves, into ridges, into sharp, overhanging cornices that threaten to collapse at any moment. You can almost hear the city groaning under the weight. The elevated railroad tracks above rattle and creak as snow loads them beyond design. Telegraph wires sag lower and lower, heavy with ice, until they resemble frozen garlands strung between buildings. Somewhere in the distance, a shutter bangs once, twice, then rips free entirely and is swallowed by the storm. Here are glimpses of the very phenomenon you are witnessing, the moment when familiar streets became desolate, snow-choked canyons, when lampposts vanished into drifts, and when the city's proud architecture was humbled by white. The fire pops softly behind you. The leather chair holds you securely. The warmth is absolute. Outside, the canyon deepens. The night lengthens. And the great white hurricane has only just begun to show what it can truly do. Stay here by the window with me. There is more to see, much more. The city itself, usually so loud, so arrogant in its mechanical progress, so sure of its dominance over the elements, is being humbled. The industrial roar is being suffocated beneath a blanket of white silence. High above the street, the elevated trains, the L, the crowning achievement of New York engineering, those iron serpents that once roared triumphantly across the skyline, are losing their battle. You can almost hear the tortured screech of metal grinding against frozen metal. The steam engines, those powerful, panting beasts of burden, gasping, coughing, dying on the iron trestles. Their wheels, once slick with oil and momentum, are now fused to the tracks by thick, unyielding ice that formed in minutes. Boilers cool, pressure drops, pistons seize. Thousands of commuters are suddenly stranded 30 feet in the air, trapped in unheated wooden cars that sway like frozen pendulums in the howling void.
Windows frost over from the inside with their panicked breath. Coats and scarves are pulled tight, but the cold seeps in anyway. They press faces to the glass, staring down at a world that has vanished beneath drifts 20 feet high, wondering if help will ever come. Here are haunting glimpses of the elevated trains in their final frozen moments, cars entombed on the tracks, the proud L reduced to silent relics of the storm. And then there is the silence of connection. Look at the telegraph lines crisscrossing the sky like the nervous system of the nation, the copper veins that once carried the pulse of commerce, love letters, stock prices, urgent warnings from coast to coast. Now they are growing heavy, encased in cylinders of ice inches thick, glistening like grotesque glass arms reaching between buildings. The weight is becoming unbearable. One by one, under the relentless strain of wind and accumulating ice, they begin to snap. Crack, crack. The sound is like pistol shots ringing out in the storm, sharp, final, echoing briefly before being swallowed by the gale. Heavy cables coil downward into the street like dead black snakes, whipping dangerously through the air, lashing at lampposts, shattering windows, threatening anyone foolish enough to still be below. With every snapped wire, a voice is silenced. A stock price is lost mid-transmission. A desperate message to a loved one, "I'm coming home, wait for me," is cut short. The connection to Boston, to Washington, to Philadelphia, to the rest of the world is being severed, physically, wire by wire. The lights flicker out. The telegraph keys fall silent. The city is going blind. The city is going deaf. New York is becoming an island in the truest, most terrifying sense of the word. Cut off, isolated, alone in the white. Here are visions of the fallen wires, the ice-laden cables that turned the sky into a graveyard of communication. But here, in this room, you are safe. You are a silent observer protected by the barrier of time and thick brick walls. You sink deeper into the cushions of the wingback chair, watching the whiteout deepen outside until the world beyond the glass reduces to a swirling gray opacity, a void where depth, distance, and direction no longer exist. The violence of the wind against the panes, shaking the frame in its frame, only serves to make the fire inside feel warmer, the amber light more golden, the sanctuary more absolute. Listen closely to the room. Above the howling outside, you hear the steady mechanical heartbeat of the house. The pendulum of the clock on the marble mantel swings with hypnotic precision, tick, tick-tock, tick-tock. It is the rhythm of survival. It is the sound of order holding its ground against chaos. Tonight, however, we will not be satisfied with merely watching the snow fall from a distance. We are going deeper. We will drift into the minds of the people struggling out there in the white abyss, the invisible, the overlooked, the essential workers of the 19th century. We will witness the ones whose hands froze on the iron levers of the trains and the brass keys of the telegraphs, so that others might one day know what happened here. We will descend into the biting cold to find the blazing warmth of the human spirit. Imagine now that we are leaving the heavy, grounded safety of the library. We are detaching from the physical world just for a moment. We are going to travel down the wires before they break, riding the dying electrical currents to their sources. We are moving toward the bustling train depots and the frantic telegraph offices, the front lines where the first battles of this war against nature are being fought. The wind howls, a wild, lonely, terrifying sound that tears at the eaves of the building. But under the suffocating layers of snow, hearts are beating, courage is burning. We leave the warmth of your library now. We drift, ghost-like and weightless, passing effortlessly through the solid brick wall, dissolving through the mortar and into the storm.
We emerge out into the swirling gray canyon of Broadway. Instantly, the wind catches us. It screams around us, a physical force. But because we are travelers of time, we do not feel the bite of the frost. We ride the gale upward, weightless as smoke. We float past the frosted windows of the tenements, catching brief, flickering glimpses of families huddled around stoves, faces illuminated by the weak glow of kerosene lamps. We rise past the creaking wooden signboards that swing violently on their chains, threatening to tear loose and join the chaos. We continue rising, up through the blinding white, toward the intricate spiderweb of copper and iron that still clings to the sky above the city. We are aiming for the wires, the frozen, trembling veins of New York, before the silence takes them completely. The storm is at its peak now, and the real stories, the human ones, are waiting below. Stay with me. We're going in. The city itself, usually so loud, so arrogant in its mechanical progress, so sure of its dominance over the elements, is being humbled.
The industrial roar is being suffocated beneath a blanket of white silence. In 1888, the sky of New York is not an open expanse. It is a caged thing, captured by a tangled, chaotic net of copper and iron. Look up and you see the obsession of the century: connection. Telegraph lines, telephone wires, stock ticker cables, private dispatch feeds, thousands of black threads woven into a dense, choking canopy, struggling to hold the world together against the entropy of distance. They are the arteries of commerce, the nerves of the empire, crisscrossing in such density that they almost blot out the gray light of the storm. And right now, they are singing. Listen closely. Can you hear it? It is a high, eerie hum, a resonant vibration that runs through every inch of metal as the ice begins to encase the wires like translucent armor. The accumulation creates a strange acoustic phenomenon. The wind, tearing through the streets at ferocious speed, plays the city like a gigantic, out-of-tune harp. It plucks at the frozen cables, setting them shivering in dissonant harmony. The notes rise and fall. Moans, whistles, shrieks, bouncing off the brick facades, multiplying, overlapping, until the entire canyon of Broadway becomes a single continuous wail. It is the sound of infrastructure straining, pushed to its absolute breaking point. It is the sound of the future cracking under the weight of the present. But inside the thick brick fortress of the main Western Union Telegraph Exchange on Broad Street, the sound is different. It is not the wail of nature, but the frantic mechanical chatter of man. We drift effortlessly through the frosted window, leaving the biting cold behind. We enter a new atmosphere. The room is vast, a cavernous hall filled with a haze of blue tobacco smoke that hangs low under the ceiling like storm clouds indoors. The air here is thick, almost chewable. It smells of ozone, the sharp metallic tang of spark-in contacts, mixed with the heavy sour scent of stale cigars and the acrid undercurrent of nervous sweat. Rows of operators, dozens upon dozens of them, sit hunched over their desks in long, regimented lines like soldiers at battle stations. The gaslights hiss above, casting long, dancing shadows across the wooden tabletops. Their vests are unbuttoned, shirt collars loosened, sleeves shoved up in the heat of effort. Their fingers dance on brass keys with a speed that blurs the vision. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. It is a relentless staccato rhythm, the heartbeat of the information age, usually steady and assured. But tonight, the rhythm is faltering. It is skipping beats. It is panicked. Focus on one operator near the center of the room. Let's drift closer to him. He is young, perhaps no more than 20, though the strain on his face makes him look older. His sleeves are rolled up past his elbows, revealing pale forearms streaked with ink and sweat. A green celluloid visor is pulled low over his eyes to shield them from the glare of the gas lamps. A half-smoked cigarette smolders forgotten between his lips. He is sweating despite the drafts leaking through every crack in the old building. He is trying desperately to reach Boston. A stack of urgent messages is spiked on the metal spindle beside him. Train schedules that no longer matter, market crash warnings that arrive too late, pleas for help from stations farther north that are already silent. His finger taps out the code, a rhythmic plea sent out into the dark, racing along the copper wire, searching for a receiver on the other end. Dash dot dash dot. CQ. CQ. Calling all stations. Is anyone there? He pauses, hand hovering over the key, head cocked to the side, listening intently to the brass sounder in the wooden box beside him. He is waiting for the sharp clack of an acknowledgement, the check signal that says the world is still connected, that the message has found its destination. But the sounder is silent. The line is dead. He taps again, slower this time, more deliberate, as though the very care of the sending might coax a reply from the void. Nothing. He leans forward, presses his ear almost against the sounder, willing it to speak. His free hand grips the edge of the desk so tightly the knuckles turn white. Around him, the room's rhythm continues to stutter. Other operators exchanging glances, muttering curses under their breath, spiking more messages onto their own spindles as if refusing to accept the silence. The young man exhales sharply, the cigarette ash crumbling onto his vest. He knows what the silence means. One by one, the circuits are failing. The wires are breaking. The connections are dying. And with every dead line, the city becomes more alone. He straightens, wipes his face with the back of his forearm, and begins tapping again, not to Boston this time, but to any station still alive, any voice still out there in the storm. Click-clack, click-clack, calling anyone. Is anyone there? The room waits. The sounder does not answer. Outside, the wind screams louder, as though mocking the futility of the effort. Inside, the young operator keeps sending, fingers moving on pure will now, because stopping would mean admitting that the world beyond these walls has already gone dark.
He will keep sending until the last wire snaps, because that is what operators do.
And somewhere in the heart of the blizzard, the last faint clack of a distant key might still be waiting to reply. We stay here, in this room of desperate rhythm, listening to the final pulses of a connected age as it begins to unravel. The night is far from over, and the silence is only beginning to spread. He tries again, harder this time, striking the key with frustration. CQ, Boston, respond. Nothing. Just the hiss of the gas lamps and the murmur of other men realizing the same terrifying truth. The wire is gone. Somewhere in the dark, miles away in the Connecticut countryside or the Bronx suburbs, the ice has won. The copper has snapped. The bridge is broken. He stares at the brass key, realizing that for the first time in his life, he is shouting into a void that refuses to answer. He refuses to accept the silence. He tries a different route, his fingers moving with frantic muscle memory precision. If the direct line is down, he will go around. He punches in the code for Albany, hoping to relay the message north and then circle it back down. Dead air. He tries the inland trunk line to Buffalo. Nothing but the static hiss of the storm itself. He tries the southern route, reaching out toward Philadelphia. Silence. It is as if the rest of the continent has simply ceased to exist. Outside the window, the ice is winning the war. It is no longer just coating the wires, it is entombing them. The freezing rain has encased every inch of the suspended metal in a glass sheath that is now an inch thick, then 2. The delicate copper strands, designed to carry weightless electricity, are now bearing thousands of pounds of frozen water. They sag dangerously low, dipping toward the roofs of the carriages below. The tension is mathematical, absolute, and terminal. The metal groans under the strain, a high-pitched harmonic whine that sounds like a violin string being tightened until it screams. Snap. It happens with the violence of a gunshot. A heavy trunk line, pushed beyond its tensile limit, shears apart. The wire recoils like a bullwhip, lashing through the air with enough force to decapitate a man. It strikes the cobblestones with a shower of sparks, twisting and writhing like a dying snake. Then another snaps, and another. The air is filled with the sharp, terrifying reports of the network collapsing. Snap, snap, snap. Inside the vast room of the exchange, the frantic clatter of the keys begins to die out, row by row. It is a slow, creeping paralysis. One by one, the brass instruments fall silent as their connections to the outside world are physically severed. The check signals stop coming. The incoming messages cut off mid-sentence. The young operator stops tapping. There is no point. He slowly takes his hands off the desk, his fingers trembling slightly from the exertion and the cold. He leans back in his wooden chair, the leather creaking in the room. The sudden quiet of the machine is louder, more deafening than the howling storm outside. It is the sound of failure. He looks to his left. The veteran operator next to him has also stopped. The man removes his visor, rubs his tired eyes, and simply shakes his head. No words are needed. The connection is severed. The invisible threads that bind the cities of America, the nervous system of the industrial age, are being cut by the scissors of the wind. For the first time in decades, the conversation has stopped. New York is no longer the center of the world. It is no longer part of the Union. It has been cast adrift, an island of brick and stone floating lone in the white, freezing void. We leave the suffocating silence of the dead wires and move back out into the roar. We drift north, gliding over the frozen rooftops, following the dark, serpentine shape of the 3rd Avenue elevated train line. High above the street, a battle for survival is taking place. A steam engine, usually a symbol of unstoppable industrial power, is fighting a losing war against the elements. The locomotive is a black iron beast, coughing and heaving, its smokestack belching thick gray plumes that are instantly flattened by the gale. Its massive steel wheels are spinning furiously, shrieking in protest, but they are useless against rails that have been transformed into slick, treacherous ribbons of solid ice. Friction has abandoned the world. Inside the rattling cab, the engineer struggles to maintain his footing. He reaches up with a gloved hand and wipes a jagged circle of frost from the glass, trying to see the track ahead. His face is a mask of concentration, illuminated from below by the hellish, pulsating red glow of the open firebox. He is a veteran of the rails, a man with coal dust in his pores, who knows the rhythm of steel on steel like his own heartbeat. He has driven through thunderstorms, through dense fogs, through the worst winters the city has seen in 20 years, but he has never felt a train move like this. It shudders violently, buffeted broadside by winds that are now clocking 60 miles an hour. The entire train acts like a sail, catching the full force of the hurricane. The danger is absolute. The train is 30 feet in the air, suspended on an iron trestle that is beginning to sway in the gale. It groans under the stress, a sickening metal screech that vibrates through the floorboards of the cab. Below, the street is gone. It is just a blur of swirling white nothingness, a deadly drop into an invisible canyon. If the wheels slip too far, if the wind pushes just a fraction harder, they will derail. They will fall into the abyss. He knows he cannot go forward. The risk is too great. With a heavy heart, he grips the cold steel of the brake lever. He pulls it back hard. The screech of metal on metal pierces the wind, a high-pitched wail of resistance. Sparks fly from the wheels, instantly extinguished by the snow. The train shudders, slides, and finally, agonizingly, grinds to a halt. They are stuck. Not at a station, not near a platform, but suspended over the void between stops. The engine gives a final, defeated hiss of steam. They are stranded in the sky, a steel coffin swaying gently in the heart of the blizzard. Behind the heaving steam engine, in the rattling wooden passenger cars, the mood has shifted from impatience to a quiet, creeping dread. The gaslights overhead sputter and flicker, casting long, wavering shadows that dance across the anxious faces of the commuters. The warmth is fleeing. The iron pot-bellied stoves at the end of each car, which were glowing cherry red an hour ago, are turning a dull ash gray. They are running low on coal, and the cold is beginning to seep through the floorboards, through the cracks in the window frames, wrapping around ankles and numbing toes.
Men in damp bowler hats and women clutching heavy wool shawls look at each other across the aisle, their eyes wide and searching for reassurance that isn't there. The murmuring conversation about business deals and dinner plans has died down completely. The bravado of the early evening, the confident jokes of, "It's just a bit of snow, we'll be home for supper before the soup gets cold," has evaporated, replaced by the heavy silence of realization. They press their gloved hands against the freezing windows, trying to melt a peephole through the frost, but they can see nothing. The familiar city, the brick tenements, the street signs, the life below is gone. It is erased by a swirling vortex of white violence. The world they know is out there, perhaps only a few blocks away, but tonight it might as well be the dark side of the moon. They are suspended in a void. Outside, the engineer makes his move. He climbs down from the high cab of the locomotive, wrapped in a heavy buffalo hide coat that makes him look like a bear walking upright.
He struggles back along the narrow, icy catwalk toward the passenger cars. It is a journey of only 20 feet, but it feels like a mile. The wind screams at him, grabbing the tails of his coat, trying to peel him from the walkway and toss him into the street below. He grips the frozen iron railing with white-knuckled force, placing one boot carefully in front of the other on the slick metal. He reaches the platform of the first car. He grabs the handle and wrenches the heavy sliding door open. Instantly, the storm rushes inside. It is a physical invasion. The wind howls into the carriage, scattering snow across the floor and chilling the air instantly. The sudden gust blows out the oil lamp near the door, plunging the front of the car into semi-darkness. The passengers gasp, shrinking back into their seats. The engineer stands there, framed by the swirling snow behind him, a silhouette of authority and bad news. He wipes the ice from his beard and looks at the frightened faces.
"We stay put," he tells them, his voice rough, shouting to be heard over the gale. He leaves no room for argument. "The rails are gone. The wheels are frozen solid. I checked the emergency stairs. They are glazed over with 3 inches of ice. If you try to go down, you will slip and fall into the street." He pauses, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. "We are safer here than out there. We wait it out." He heaves the door shut, throwing his weight against the wood until the latch engages with a final metallic click. The roaring demon outside is silenced once more, reduced to a dull, vibrating bass note against the walls. The darkness returns, heavier than before, illuminated only by the dying ember-red glow of the cast-iron stove at the far end of the aisle. The passengers sit in the semi-darkness, pulling their heavy wool coats tighter around their necks, tucking their chins into their collars.
The reality of their situation settles upon them like the dust in the air. They are trapped in a wooden box, a fragile shell of carpentry and varnish, suspended 30 feet above the killing cold, held up by nothing more than frozen iron trestles that groan in the wind. But look closely at their faces in the dim light. Notice the subtle shift in the air. There is no panic yet. There is no screaming. Instead, there is a strange, quiet settling in, a collective resignation. As the temperature inside the car drops to match the temperature outside, a warmth of a different kind begins to generate. It is a strange, shared intimacy, born of necessity. Watch the man in the third row. He is a banker, dressed in a fine frock coat and a silk top hat, a man who likely hasn't spoken to a working-class soul in years except to give an order. He is holding a copy of the Evening Post.
Beside him sits a laborer, his hands rough and stained with the day's grime, shivering in a thin jacket. Without a word, the banker tears the newspaper in half. He hands the business section to the laborer. They do not read the stock quotes. Together, they fold the paper into thick wedges and stuff them into the whistling cracks of the window frame to stop the draft. A few seats down, a young woman in a velvet bonnet reaches into her purse. She finds a peppermint drop, fuzzy with lint. She wipes it off and offers it to a crying child across the aisle, whose mother looks exhausted and frightened. The child takes it, the sharp scent of mint cutting through the stale air, and the crying stops. The rigid social barriers of Victorian New York, the ironclad rules of class, status, and wealth that dictate every interaction in the city below, are dissolving here, melted by the freezing cold.
The frost on the windows renders the outside world irrelevant. The cold does not care about your bank account. The wind does not respect your lineage. They are no longer strangers on a commute, avoiding eye contact. They are a crew. They are survivors sharing a lifeboat in the sky. High above the buried street, the train rocks gently in the wind. It sways with a rhythmic, hypnotic motion, like a cradle commanded by the gale. The snow piles up on the roof, inch by heavy inch, acting as a layer of insulation, muffling the sound of the storm until the terrified scream of the wind becomes a distant, rhythmic drumming. Thump, thump, thump. It is a lullaby for the stranded as they wait for a dawn that feels like it may never come. Drum, drum, drum. The rhythm is faint, muffled by the heavy velvet curtains and the thick plate glass, but back in your library, you hear it too, a soft, relentless thud against the window pane. It is the sound of the storm asking for entry. The fire in your hearth, which roared so fiercely an hour ago, settles low in the grate. The logs shift with a shower of sparks, turning from yellow flames to glowing, pulsating orange embers. The shadows in the room grow longer, reaching out from the corners. You lift your porcelain cup and take a slow sip of hot cider, the steam warming your face. Taste the cinnamon and the clove. Anchor yourself in this warmth. Because outside, the era of technology has ended. You are witnessing the precise moment the machine stops and the human story begins. Think of what we've seen. The wires, the nerves are severed. The trains, the muscles are paralyzed. The steam engines, the lungs of the industrial age, are frozen. The city's mechanical heart, usually so loud and rhythmic, has seized. The arrogant hum of progress has been silenced by the wind. Now, the survival of the metropolis is no longer up to iron and steam. It is up to the blood and bone of its people. It is up to the warmth of skin and the resilience of the soul. The night is deepening into a profound, suffocating black. The snow is rising, inch by silent inch, reclaiming the land. And in the crowded tenements of the Lower East Side and the limestone townhouses of Fifth Avenue, the real struggle is just beginning. We descend now. We leave the frozen heights of the elevated train, abandoning the stranded passengers to their lullaby. We drift down, sinking through the swirling abyss of the storm. It feels like falling through a cloud, a disorienting white void where up and down lose their meaning. The wind buffets us, tangling in our invisible clothes. As we reach the street level, we see that the city below is undergoing a transformation so profound it feels less like a weather event and more like a rapid geological shift. The snow is not just covering New York, it is erasing it. It is fossilizing the city in real time. Familiar landmarks are gone. The sharp angles of the curbs are smoothed into rolling dunes. The staircases are becoming slopes. The alleys are becoming glaciers. The wind is carving the drifts into strange, alien shapes, peaks and valleys that have no business existing on a paved street. The geography of civilization is being overwritten by the geography of the Arctic. The city is being returned to the wild. Down here, on the street level, the fight for light is being lost. The gas lamps, those reliable sentinels of the Victorian night, are flickering out one by one. The wind, screaming through the narrow brick canyons of the avenues with a banshee wail, hunts them down. It smashes through the glass panes and snuffs the flames like birthday candles. Puffed, puffed, puffed. Darkness rushes in to fill the void. The blackout is almost total.
But it is not the pitch black of a closet. It is something stranger. It is a gray, suffocating twilight. The air is filled with the eerie, luminescent glow of the snow itself, capturing and scattering the faint ambient light of a city struggling to stay awake. It creates a ghostly, flat illumination where shadows do not exist and depth perception fails.
Look at the architecture. It is being besieged. Drifts are piling up against the storefronts with impossible speed, reaching 6, 10, even 15 feet high. They are not soft piles. They are hard, sculpted ramparts. They curl over the tops of doorways and arch over windows like breaking ocean waves frozen in time by a Gorgon's stare. The familiar landmarks of the street, the limestone stoops, the red iron fire hydrants, the cast iron hitching posts, are gone. They have been smoothed over, buried deep beneath a landscape of alien white dunes. The city has become a polar desert. In this blinding chaos, where the police have retreated and the politicians are warm in their beds, the everyday heroes emerge. These are not generals or captains of industry. They are the quiet, stubborn souls who refuse to let the storm break the human chain. Let us float toward a brownstone on 35th Street. The wind here is ferocious, banking the snow against the front door until it has effectively sealed the house shut. Inside, the scene is one of quiet, desperate urgency. A doctor is pulling on his heavy leather boots. He is an old man, his hair white as the storm outside, his hands spotted with liver spots and shaking slightly with age. But watch those hands. They become steady as he buckles the clasps. He is a man of medicine, and duty is a fire that keeps him warm. In the hallway stands a messenger boy, no older than 12. He is wrapped in layers of newspaper beneath a thin coat, shivering so violently his teeth chatter like castanets. He hammered on the door 10 minutes ago, half frozen, delivering a plea that could not wait for clear skies. A woman is in labor. She is 3 blocks away. In fair weather, it is a 5-minute walk. Tonight, it is an Arctic expedition. The doctor grabs his heavy bag, leather, worn smooth, filled with the tools of bringing life into the world. He wraps a heavy wool scarf around his face, leaving only his eyes exposed. He looks at the boy, then at the door. He knows the risks. He knows a man of his age could fall in a drift and simply never get up. "Stay here, son," he rumbles, his voice gravelly. "Warm yourself by the fire. I'll go alone." He moves to the door. It won't budge. The snow is piled high against the other side. He has to shoulder it, grunting with exertion, forcing the wood back against the weight of the white wall. Finally, it gives way with a crunch of ice. The wind instantly howls into the hallway, scattering the mail on the table. The doctor steps out, not into a street, but into a trench of snow. He lowers his head, grips his bag, and steps into the white dark. He is walking into the teeth of the gale to catch a new life before the storm can snuff it out. The doctor knows the odds. He has seen frostbite turn fingers black in hours. He has seen hypothermia stop a heart in minutes. He knows that stepping out into this maelstrom is not merely a difficult commute. It is a gamble with his own life. But the calculation is made in a split second. A life is waiting to arrive, and he is the only one who can open the door. He packs his bag, checking the vials of chloroform and the forceps. He wraps a thick wool scarf around his face, winding it tight until only his eyes are exposed, 2 flinty points of determination. He moves to the front door, but it is useless. The drift outside has cemented it shut. He retreats to the parlor. He throws open the sash of the tall window.
The wind immediately blasts the curtains horizontal. He climbs out, not down to the street, but directly onto a snowdrift that is level with the sill. He stands on what should be air. Watch him. He does not walk on the sidewalk. He cannot find it. It is buried 6 feet down. He is forced to navigate a new, treacherous topography. He walks on the tops of fences, balancing precariously on the wrought iron rails like a tightrope walker. He crawls on his hands and knees over mountains of white that have buried the stoops and the lampposts. The wind tries to murder him. It gusts at 60 miles per hour, shoving him, trying to knock him off his perch and bury him in the soft, suffocating powder below. But he leans into it. He becomes a silhouette of pure will against the white fury. He is a tiny flickering speck of warmth in a universe of absolute cold, driven forward by a simple, ancient duty. Life must be preserved. We leave him to his struggle and drift further downtown, descending into the dense, dark labyrinth of the Lower East Side tenements. Here, the architecture is different and the stakes are raw. A different kind of heroism is unfolding in these cramped brick canyons. Here, the walls are thin, built for profit, not for protection. The coal bins in the cellars are already scraping empty. The cold does not knock politely. It invades. It is a predator. It seeps through the cracks in the shrinking floorboards. It whistles through the rattle of the loose window frames. It radiates from the brickwork itself. Inside a fourth-floor apartment on Orchard Street, the air is so cold that a cup of water left on the table has frozen solid. A family of 7 is huddled in one room. They have broken up the wooden chairs and the table legs to feed the stove. But look at the door. It opens. A neighbor enters, a large woman with red, chapped hands. She carries a bucket. It is full of coal. She has emptied her own limited supply to share with the widow next door who has a sick infant. She says nothing, just dumps the black gold into the scuttle and nods. Down the hall, a baker is awake. He cannot open his shop, so he has fired up his ovens in the basement of the tenement. He is baking bread, not to sell, but to give. The smell of yeast and warm flour rises through the ventilation shafts, a scent of hope rising against the smell of ice. Strangers are huddled in the hallway, pressing their backs against the chimney breast, sharing body heat, sharing stories, sharing the last of their whiskey. In the face of a storm that wants to freeze the city to death, the poor are keeping each other warm. In the cramped confines of a fourth-floor walk-up on the Lower East Side, the cold has claimed the room. It has painted ferns of ice on the inside of the single window pane and turned the water in the wash basin into a solid block. A family gathers in the center of the room, the only place where the draft from the walls feels slightly less lethal. The cast iron stove, the heart of the home, has gone cold. Its metal belly is black and silent. The coal scuttle is empty, scraped clean hours ago. The father stands up. He is a man worn down by hard labor, his face etched with the grime of the city, but his eyes are clear. He looks around the dim room, searching for fuel. There is nothing left to burn, no newspapers, no crate wood. His gaze lands on the corner of the room. There sits the wooden chair. It is made of sturdy oak, its varnish darkened by time. It was a wedding gift, cherished for 20 years. It is the chair where his wife nursed their firstborn. It is the chair where he sat to read the letters from home. It is not just furniture. It is a member of the family, a repository of 2 decades of memories. He looks at his children. There are 3 of them, huddled under a pile of thinning, patchworked quilts. Their lips are turning a pale, frightening blue. They have stopped complaining about the cold, which is a sign that terrifies him more than the shivering. He does not hesitate.
With a heavy quietness, a solemnity that fits a funeral, he walks to the corner. He lifts the chair. It feels heavy, substantial, good wood. He carries it to the center of the room. He looks at his wife. She nods, a single tearful acknowledgement of the necessity. He raises the chair and brings it down hard against the floor. Crack! The sound is shocking in the silent room, like a gunshot. The sturdy legs splinter. The backrest snaps. He pulls the pieces apart, his hands trembling, not just from the cold, but from the violence of destroying something he loves to save the people he loves. The dry wood snaps with jagged, visceral tears. He opens the stove door and feeds the wreckage inside. The legs, the seat, the curved back. He strikes a match. The flame is small at first, fragile, but the dry, varnished wood catches greedily. A yellow light blooms in the grate, casting long, dancing shadows against the peeling wallpaper. The fire crackles and pops, a sound of life returning to the dead room. The smell of burning varnish and old oak fills the air, a sharp, sweet scent of sacrifice. The warmth spreads. It is faint at first, but to them it feels like a tropical sun.
He sits on the bare floor now, the space where the chair stood now empty. He pulls his family close. They crawl out from the quilts and huddle in a tight, desperate circle, a fortress of bodies against the invading winter. The father wraps his arms around them, his large, rough hands rubbing warmth into small shoulders. They do not speak of the fear that is gnawing at the edges of their minds. They do not talk about whether the wood will last until morning. Instead, they tell stories. The mother whispers of a summer day in a meadow far away, describing the heat of the sun on their faces so vividly that for a moment they can almost feel it. They sing. It starts as a hum, low and rhythmic, vibrating in their chests. It is an old folk song from a land they left behind, a tune of harvest and home. They share more than just body heat. They are sharing the will to endure. They are knitting their spirits together to form a shield the wind cannot penetrate. And just outside that frosted pane, inches away from their huddled warmth, the storm rages on. It screams and howls, piling snow against the brickwork, utterly indifferent to their struggle, indifferent to the chair, indifferent to the love that burns in that tiny flickering room. Let us withdraw now from the frozen tenement floor and return to the velvet sanctuary of your library. Here, the scene is tranquil, a stillness that feels almost heavy after the desperate energy of the struggle we just witnessed. You are separated from this life and death battle by layers of solid brick, heavy curtains, and the insurmountable barrier of time. Take a deep breath. Inhale slowly. The air here is dry and warm, filled with the rich, resinous scent of the fire. The wood smoke is distinct and grounding, a smell that taps into something primal and comforting. Listen to the room. You can hear the wind buffeting the chimney, but here it is not a scream. It is a deep, hollow, roaring sound. It echoes in the flue like the ocean trapped in a giant seashell, a low-frequency vibration that you can feel in the floorboards. It highlights the absolute safety of your position. The house shudders slightly, like a great ship riding out a gale, but it holds firm. The contrast is what makes the warmth feel so profound. You are wrapped in the ultimate luxury, the luxury of security. Focus your attention on the bay window again. An hour ago you could see the street. Now the glass is almost entirely obscured.
The cold has pressed its hand against the pane, leaving behind a fingerprint of frost. Intricate, fern-like patterns of ice are growing and branching before your eyes, a crystalline forest spreading across the glass. The world outside is gone. The gaslights, the buildings, the suffering, it has all been reduced to a white abstraction, a blank canvas of swirling gray and white. But listen closely. Strain your ears against the low roar of the chimney. Through the howling gale, cutting through the white noise of the storm, there is another sound. Clang, clang. It is faint, distant, but undeniably there. It is rhythmic. It is persistent.
It is the sound of metal striking metal, a lonely, dissonant note ringing out in the void. It is not the chaotic sound of nature. It is the deliberate sound of man. Clang, clang. It draws closer. It is a signal from the street below, fighting its way up to you through the wind. It is a church bell tolling from a stone steeple somewhere deep in the invisible geography of the city. Perhaps it is Trinity Church standing guard at the head of Wall Street, or maybe Grace Church on the bend of Broadway. The bell ringer, a solitary figure perhaps stranded in the tower by the rising drifts, or perhaps simply a man too stubborn to let the storm break the ritual of centuries, is tolling the hour. He throws his weight against the rope. The heavy bronze swings. Gong. It is midnight, the witching hour of the great white hurricane. The sound is not the clear, bright peal of a Sunday morning. It is muffled, flattened, distorted by the screaming wind.
It sounds underwater, but it carries. It fights its way through the wall of white, traveling over the buried rooftops where chimneys struggle to breathe, over the stranded trains frozen on their trestles, over the harbor where ships are encased in ice. The sound waves hit the doctor, who is waist-deep in a drift on Fifth Avenue. He stops, panting, his breath freezing in his beard. He tilts his head. The sound gives him a bearing. It tells him where south is. He adjusts his grip on his bag and pushes on. It reaches the family, huddled by the dying embers of the burning chair. The father hears it echo down the chimney flue, a faint vibration. He tightens his hold on his children. They have survived another hour. It reaches the engineer in the cold cab of the elevated train, high above the street. He is shivering violently now, but the sound reminds him that he is not the only soul awake in this white hell. It is a reminder. It is a pulse check. The city is still here. Time is still moving, even if the world looks like it has ended. The heart of the metropolis has slowed, beating with a terrifying sluggishness, but it has not stopped. The snow falls, and falls, and falls. There is a hypnotic weight to it now. It fills the silence between the bell tolls, packing the air with silence. It creates a hush so deep, so profound, that it feels spiritual, a cathedral quiet imposed on a city of noise. The violence of the wind begins to shift. The frantic, shrieking gusts of the early evening are settling into a monotonous, heavy rhythm. The storm has passed its frantic youth and entered a mature, relentless endurance. It is no longer trying to break the city. It is simply trying to bury it. The white curtain has fallen, and it will not rise for days. You sink deeper into the embrace of your wingback chair. The leather warms against your back. Your eyelids feel heavy, weighted down by the sheer magnitude of the events we have witnessed. The story of the storm, with its howling winds and burying snows, has transformed into a strange, hypnotic lullaby of nature's power. It serves as a humbling reminder, even the greatest city on earth, with all its steel rails and telegraph wires, is just a collection of fragile shelters clinging to a rock spinning through the dark of space. But you are in the shelter. You are the exception. You are the keeper of the flame tonight, the silent witness safe within the fortress. As the clock on your marble mantel clicks its gears and begins to strike, it echoes the distant church bell we heard in the void. 1, 2, 3. 12 soft, melodic chimes ring out in the quiet room. Midnight. The bridge between the day the world ended and the day the new world begins. We prepare to move forward now. We let the hours dissolve. We drift toward the morning, to the time when the light finally returns, revealing a world that has been sculpted by the wind into something new, something alien, and something terrifyingly beautiful. Time passes in a blur of shadow and warmth. The fire in your hearth has burned down. The roaring yellow flames are gone, replaced by a deep, mesmerizing bed of glowing coals. They pulse with a low, steady red heat, breathing like a sleeping animal in the grate. The room is cooler now, the draft from the window nipping at the air, but the heavy patchwork quilt pulled up over your legs keeps you perfectly warm. You have dozed, drifting in and out of the history, suspended in the space between waking and dreaming. But now, a shift in the atmosphere stirs you. It is not a sound. The wind has finally died down to a whisper. It is the light. You open your eyes to a strange, diffused brilliance filling the room. It is morning. Open your eyes. It is morning. Monday, March 12th, 1888. By all the laws of the calendar and the clock, the city should be roaring to life. The factory whistles should be screaming. The drays should be clattering over the cobblestones. But there is nothing. The light is the first thing that tells you the world has changed. It is not the golden warmth of sunrise, nor the gray gloom of a rainstorm. It is a strange, diffuse, milky luminescence, a snowlight that seems to radiate from the ground as much as from the sky, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It fills the room with a ghostly, pearl-gray brilliance. You rise slowly from the wing-back chair. Your limbs are stiff from sleeping upright, and the fire is dead, leaving a chill in the air that bites through your clothes. You pull your shawl tighter and move toward the bay window. The pane is now a sheet of solid white. The ferns of frost have grown into a thick, opaque jungle. You press your warm palm against the cold surface, melting a spy hole. You rub the glass hard, clearing a small, ragged circle through the ice. You lean in and look out, and what you see stops your breath in your throat. The world you knew has been erased. The city of New York, that rigid grid of iron and stone, the sharp, arrogant angles of commerce and industry has been completely obliterated. It has been replaced by a rolling, organic landscape of pristine white. The street below is gone. It simply does not exist. In its place are vast, undulating waves of snow, sculpted by the wind into dunes that look like a frozen ocean mid-storm. The scale is impossible to comprehend at first. Some of the drifts are massive, banking up against the brownstones and reaching as high as the second-story windows. You look for the familiar landmarks, but they are gone. The limestone stoops, buried. The cast-iron fences, swallowed whole. The gas lampposts, Only the very tops of their glass hoods are visible, sticking out of the snow like strange black mushrooms in a white field. There is no dirt, there is no soot, there is no trash. The city has been scrubbed clean, returned to a state of terrified innocence.
It looks less like a bustling metropolis of the industrial age and more like the surface of a sleeping moon, silent, alien, and overwhelmingly still. The silence is absolute. It is not merely the absence of noise, it is a physical weight, a blanket that muffles the entire world. The roar of the wind, which screamed like a living thing for 24 hours, has died down to a breathless, reverent hush. Listen. Really listen. There are no iron-rimmed carriage wheels grinding against cobblestones. There are no factory whistles piercing the air to signal the start of the shift. There is no metallic clatter of the elevated trains overhead. The newsboys are silent. The hawkers are gone. The industrial age, in all its steam-powered fury, has been paused. The machine has been unplugged. The loudest sound in the city, a city of millions, is the beating of your own heart in your ears and the shallow intake of your own breath. You stand at the window, mesmerizingly alone, until you watch the first signs of life emerge from the white stillness.
Across the way, on the second floor of the brownstone opposite yours, a window sash is suddenly thrown up. The wood creates a sharp report in the quiet air. Thwack! A man leans out. He is disheveled, likely still in his nightclothes under a heavy coat. He blinks violently against the glare, shielding his eyes. The white light is blinding, reflecting off millions of ice crystals like diamond dust. He holds a coal shovel in one hand. He looks down at his stoop, searching for his front door, but it is gone. It is hopelessly buried under 6 feet of drift. He realizes the absurdity of his position. The only way out is not through the door, but through the window. He climbs onto the sill, maneuvering his legs over the edge. He hesitates for a second, looking at the drop, and then he lets go. He drops softly into the snowbank. There is no thud, just a soft whump of displacement. He sinks instantly to his waist, the powder swallowing him up.
For a moment, he looks panicked, thrashing slightly as the cold bites him. But then, he stops. He looks at the snow around him, then up at the blue patch of sky breaking through the clouds. He laughs. It is a sharp, barking sound that echoes off the brick walls. It is a sound of shock, certainly, the disbelief at seeing his world transformed into a tundra, but it is also a sound of relief. The storm didn't take him. The roof held. The fire lasted. He is alive. He grips the handle of his shovel. He turns to the mountain of white that blocks his path to the world. He begins to dig. Scrape, lift, toss, scrape, lift, toss. The sound is crisp and distinct. It is the heartbeat of the morning. The rhythm of the recovery begins. It is slow, it is laborious, it is deeply human. It is one man, with one simple tool, trying to find his way back to the street. And as you watch, another window opens down the block, then another. The city is waking up to its new reality, one shovel at a time. Let us drift one last time. We release our hold on the brick sill of your library window and rise weightless into the crisp, blinding morning air. We float silently over the transformed city, gliding eastward past the silent chimneys and the snow-capped water towers, moving toward the edge of the island. We arrive at the waterfront, and here the storm has performed its greatest magic trick. The East River,
that churning black artery of commerce, that violent tidal strait that separates the industry of Manhattan from the bedrooms of Brooklyn, has done the impossible. It has stopped. The water, usually a chaotic highway of tugboats, barges, and whitecaps, has been silenced. The ice floes, driven together by the relentless tide and welded shut by the bitter 0-degree cold, have formed a jagged white bridge. It is not a smooth skating rink, it is a chaotic, frozen mosaic.
Massive slabs of river ice, some the size of carriages, have smashed together and frozen instantly at the point of impact, creating a landscape of sharp ridges and treacherous valleys. And look, down there, do you see the movement? Because the massive steam ferries are trapped in their slips, frozen fast with their paddle wheels locked in blocks of ice like insects in amber, the people have taken matters into their own hands. They are walking, thousands of them. It is a sight that defies logic. From this height, they look like a black antline of commuters, a dark, winding river of humanity flowing across the white ice. They are bundled in heavy wool, heads bowed against the glare, picking their way carefully across the frozen river. Zoom in closer. Listen to the sound. It is a strange, crunching roar, the sound of thousands of leather boots gripping the ice. They are walking from Brooklyn to Manhattan, a perilous pilgrimage to get to work or to find lost loved ones.
They are stepping over the sleeping power of the water. Beneath their feet, inches below the ice, the black current still flows, deep and deadly. Occasionally, a loud crack echoes like a gunshot across the river, freezing everyone in their tracks. They look down, hearts hammering, waiting to see if the world will open up. But the ice holds, and they keep walking. It is a moment of pure, reckless courage. It is the ultimate defiance. The bridge of stone and steel, the Brooklyn Bridge, looms overhead, a ghost in the mist. But today, the people have built their own bridge, a bridge made of disaster, a bridge made of ice. They move with a precarious grace, testing the surface with every step. They help one another in ways that would be unthinkable on a normal Tuesday. A gloved hand reaches out to steady a stranger who slips on a ridge of frozen spray. A group of men, strangers until this moment, link arms to form a human chain, bracing against a sudden, violent gust that threatens to slide them toward the open black water near the pilings. There are no tickets collected here. There are no conductors shouting schedules. The rigid class structure of the Victorian era has been left on the riverbanks. Here, on the ice, the banker and the bricklayer share the same footing and the same fear. There is only the shared, surreal experience of walking on water in the middle of a suspended world, a fleeting egalitarian society built on a sheet of ice. This is the true legacy the storm leaves behind. It is not just found in the records broken or the meteorological data collected. It is not just in the laws that will be written in the coming months. The legacy is the memory of this profound vulnerability. For 24 hours, the hubris of the Gilded Age was stripped away. For one day, the city that thought it had conquered the night with electric light and conquered distance with the telegraph realized the truth. It was not the master of the earth. It was merely a guest on it, a fragile tenant living at the mercy of the wind. The illusion of control was shattered by a billion snowflakes. The recovery will come, of course. The telegraph lines will be repaired, spliced back together by freezing fingers. The trains will eventually chip the thick casings of ice from their iron wheels and groan back to life, screeching along the tracks once more. The snow will inevitably melt, turning from this pristine alien landscape into the gray slush of commerce, then to water, washing into the gutters, and finally fading into memory. But the city will learn. It will look at the snapped wires and the silent trains, and it will decide to change its anatomy. It will take its nervous system, those thousands of vulnerable wires, and bury them deep underground, safe from the wind. It will look at the frozen elevated trains and dream of digging tunnels through the bedrock. The New York subway system will be born from the silence of this blizzard. The storm will literally drive the city beneath the earth to find its future. But that is tomorrow's noise. That is the future's problem. For now, in this suspended white moment, before the shovels finish their work, before the factories fire their boilers, before the dollar becomes God again, there is only the peace of the pause. The city takes a deep, clean breath. It is quiet, it is still, and it is beautiful. We return to you. We withdraw from the icy expanse of the East River, pulling back from the frozen history, and find ourselves once again within the four walls of the library. The atmosphere here has changed. The light in the room is soft, impossibly gentle, filtered through the thick layer of snow that is packed tight against the window pane. It casts a muted, dreamlike quality over the rows of leather-bound books and the rich patterns of the Persian rug. The world outside is white and silent, and that silence seems to insulate this room, turning it into a capsule of peace. You turn back to the fireplace. The heat has ebbed slightly, the deep red pulse of the coals waiting for sustenance. You reach for the iron tongs, their metal cool against your palm. You select a fresh log, perhaps a piece of dry, seasoned oak, and place it deliberately onto the bed of glowing embers. Watch it for a moment. At first, it merely rests there, dark and cold. Then a thin ribbon of gray smoke curls upward, drawn by the draft. Suddenly, with a soft whoosh, it catches. A new flame, bright, yellow, and vigorous, dances up the bark, wrapping the wood in a warm embrace. The shadows in the room retreat. The warmth returns, radiating outward, touching your face, your hands, chasing away the phantom chill of the blizzard. You sink back into the deep cushions of the wingback chair. The leather creaks softly, welcoming you back, molding to your form. Take a moment to appreciate what has happened. The storm has done its work. It has stripped the world of its noise, its desperate hurry, its industrial arrogance. It has paused the relentless march of progress and left behind a blank page, a clean slate.
You are safe. The danger has passed. The history is written in the books on the shelves, but you are not trapping in it. Feel the heaviness settling into your eyelids, a pleasant, magnetic weight. The tension of the time travel is over. You are no longer standing on the corner of Broadway with the wind tearing at your coat. You are no longer watching the telegraph wires snap or the trains freeze. You are no longer walking the ice. You are simply here, in the quiet, in the now. The only sound left is the fire. Listen to it. The crackle of the wood is a rhythm, older than cities, older than storms. Crackle, hush. Crackle, hush. It is a conversation between the heat and the wood, a steady, hypnotic beat that slows your breathing and quiets your mind. Let the sound wash over you. Let the warmth anchor you. You have weathered the storm. Now, rest. The clock on the marble mantel picks up the rhythm of the fire. The brass pendulum swings with a steady, unhurried cadence, marking seconds that no longer demand your attention. Tick, tock, tick, tock.
It is a heartbeat of pure tranquility. It harmonizes with the soft popping of the oak log, weaving a sonic tapestry that wraps around you, shielding you from the world. The snow outside is no longer a threat. It is a guardian. It is a vast white blanket, heavy and soft, tucking the city in for a long, well-earned sleep. It has muffled the cries of commerce and the shouts of ambition. It has covered the sharp edges of the buildings and the rough cobblestones of the streets. The entire metropolis, usually so restless, so insomnia-ridden, has finally closed its eyes, and you are tucked in with it. You are part of this great, silent hibernation. Allow your shoulders to drop that final inch. Unclench your jaw. Let the tension of the journey, the cold of the blizzard, and the weight of the history simply evaporate into the warmth of the room. Let the white noise of the history fade. The images we saw, the frozen trains, the struggling ships, the walking crowds, are losing their definition. They are softening, blurring at the edges like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. They are dissolving into a gentle white mist. You do not need to hold on to them anymore. You do not need to remember the date. You do not need to worry about the wires. Drift. Let your thoughts detach from the anchor of the present. Let them float upward like the smoke from the chimney, disappearing into the vast, quiet sky. Float. Feel the sensation of weightlessness. The chair holds you, but your spirit is light. You are suspended in a space where there is no cold, no wind, only this deep amber warmth. Rest. The word is a command and a promise. The journey is done. The storm has passed. The silence is yours to keep. The city sleeps under its blanket of white. The past sleeps in the books on the wall. And now, time traveler, so do you. Good night.